So, long debate, build new, buy a resale.
Yeah,
What's your take?
huge debate. Yeah, and honestly, I can't even actually answer that question for anybody. It depends on what your needs and wants are. But I think you need to maybe ask yourself what the right questions to ask are. So here's what I would kind of explain new build versus resale. So in London's market, the nice thing about, and I'm a bit biased towards the resale, is because the older homes are typically going to have a much bigger lot, and they're going to have the mature trees, the mature areas. As somebody looking to buy in that area, you already have a predetermined notion or sense as to how that area is for crime rates and things like that. So you can kind of see ahead if you have a young family. New build subdivisions, for the most part, are going to be probably pretty okay in that aspect also, but at least you can kind of know the good reputation areas, and there's been history now of resale potential for 40, 50, 60-year-old homes, and you can see the trends and the constant increases there, so it's a bit more of a safer bet.
Insurance claims and things like that too, like you know which things have happened over time.
Yeah, exactly.
Inspectors usually have a pretty good idea on that stuff.
Yep, and you know, I guess they kind of say they don't build them like they used to, and that's true in two senses, right? I mean, they were built with thicker materials, and they were a bit overkill with some of the stuff that they did from a structural perspective, but they also did things differently, where they would have old knob and tube wiring, or they would use asbestos in the attic, or they would use, or in the drywall, or they would use aluminum wiring. So older homes are going to come with those deficiencies as well, whereas when you get new builds, they may not build them like they used to, but they still now, because they're new, have new Ontario Building Code standards, where like an R50, I think, is now standard for what minimum insulation needs to be. They're way more eco-efficient. They're brand new. You can help customize what they're going to be when you go to a builder and say, I want this, 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 and this. No one's lived in it before. They're new and shiny. You know, from a resale, people go, well, how's my resale going to be? Well, if you think about it this way, is that there's nothing to do when you buy a new house. I would recommend not finishing the basement with the builder. That has a huge markup on that. Do it yourself, or hire a professional contractor out, but call around and get them a bunch of quotes down the road when you're ready. You know, and as far as resale, different areas pop up, and parts of London have better resale than other parts do. So, if you buy a new build and you want to sell it in a year or 2 years, be careful of it, because you know, look at who you're competing against. Are you still directly competing with a builder in the same phase, or is your phase completed and they're on a new phases with newer prices?
How close is that phase? Right?
How close is that phase? Exactly.
So to touch on that, what you mentioned about you don't have to do anything to a new home. Sometimes you will have fencing, you may have central air, depending on upgrades, right? So that's true. You know, you may have sod, you may have landscaping. Finished basement you touched on, but I mean, those can be pricey things, right? Fencing a whole property, or maybe doing a deck. You know, like the one thing about new builds is they will, and we just recently did one last week, and every builder's different. You know, if they're late on your closing on building the house, you know, they have right in their contract, they may compensate you. These are little things that you want to be aware of, and it's things that you can certainly reach out to us and ask us about. We have all the information, but every builder's different. So it's not, and they write their own contracts. It's not going to be the standard paperwork that we do on a typical resale. So what about value? You know, when you're looking at value, what's your take on that?
On the value between a new build, well,
I could take that one if you like too.
Yeah, go for it.
So a lot of times with resale, I think you might get better value, right? That doesn't mean you won't make a lot of money, because there are a lot of people that made $30,000, $40,000 in 4 or 5 years on new builds. It just depends on the development. So every development's different, right? Some developments have restrictive covenants for this. Some developments are a lot of builders. Some have a couple builders that are really high end. And with resale, typically the one thing about it is the trend, right? So you've seen the trends. We know where an as-is home will sell. We know where a high-end home will sell. New builds, because there's not a lot of differences in them nowadays. You know, there can be small ones, but a lot of it's really square footage. Is it a premium lot? Or is it not? What are you backing onto? And what upgrades? I mean, if you're competing with that builder, or if you're competing with people who all have the same mentality, hey, I'm going to list in 3 years, they're going to build now, phase is done, we're all going to list and make some money. Problem with that is direct correlation supply and demand. If everybody has pretty much the same product and they're all listing at the same time, well, that's going to drive prices down.
Exactly. So why would somebody, if you're going to sell it in 2 years, why would somebody choose your 2-year-old house when they can go buy brand new off the builder for the same price?
Exactly.
Or cheaper, and have that full 7-year carry-on warranty, which you get with the new builds. Also, I'd say too, research the builder. research the builder,
yeah.
like call around, ask for references, do your homework, because there are great builders, there are not so great builders, but remember too that builders also use sub trades.
Exactly.
So
right.
but there are builders with great reputations for a reason.
Yeah.
So
when it comes to the resale thing of a new builder or whatever, I'd say if you're doing a lot of your own contracting and you're doing a lot of, like, I know I have a close friend who built his house. He was quoted at like 600 or something to have it built by a builder. He built it for 450 with landscaping and a finished basement. You know, like that's a huge spread, right? That's a high-end home. That is a very, very rare, you know, it's not everyone that can do that. He did a lot of his own work. I mean, I helped him trench out his basement, all kinds of things. He cleaned up his site every day. Little things like that, but they add up, right? And they cost you money. So as far as selling that, I mean, the builder is typically going to get that equity. They're going to get that spread when they sell it to you. That's why they're doing it. If you can do a lot of it yourself, you may actually, you know, make more money with a new build. But with resale, you're typically going to have the data, and you might be able to make a little bit more money doing some quick fix-ups and things like that.
Yeah, and keep in mind too, I mean, GST, HST, that is a cost on a brand new purchase that will be built into the price, whether the builder is, going to give you a rebate on that or whatever. But be conscious and ask that question, because when you buy a resale, HST is always included in that price. Builds, make sure you're asking about that.
Guys, touch on this as well. With an agent on a builder or go through the builder, right? Two takes. Truthfully, if you're going to be able to go directly to a builder, directly to them, and it's not listed, they will probably give you a better deal without paying a real estate agent. Likely, their spread, or they might just make that money, but likely they will. If it's a private builder, private developer, you will probably get a better deal. Now, if that property's listed and somebody is saying, I can do this for you if you work with me, or if you come directly with me, that's not true. It's actually unethical. You can't. It's anti-competitive. You can't if that property's on the market and listed and pushed out to everybody, you can't tell a buyer, hey, I can get you these upgrades, and then tell their representative you can if you go through them. That's anti-competitive. You're not allowed to do that. Will some people try and do that to pull you in and poach some clients? Absolutely. There's people out there that do that all the time. I mean, that's just the business. But be aware that if you like working with somebody, and that's not us, if you have your own representative, that's great. I mean, we recommend that. Always have somebody you trust. But just understand that you don't have to work with the agent who has that property listed because they claim they can get you better incentives, because that's anti-competitive. If it's marketed out in the MLS, they have to offer the same things to us as they would there. So always get it in writing from somebody on a build. Make sure that you email them, have something in writing and something to show that they've said that to you, and you will be okay.
And shop around. Yeah, that's all I can say. Yeah.